What's going on, everybody? I know I look like I'm a Little League Baseball coach right now with my jacket on, but I'm doing good. Hope everyone's doing good. So I want to speak about what Teddy Atlas said. I saw a video, and he said that he always felt that Anthony Joshua was overrated. He was overhyped. He didn't deserve his decision in the Olympics. The fighters that he beat were not that good on the way up when he got all these titles. And he was just bound to get exposed over time. First by Andy Ruiz, and then by Usyk, losing twice to Usyk. And it made me think, because of the hype around Anthony Joshua surrounding his career early on, where Eddie Hearn, I remember in an interview, he said that Anthony Joshua is going to have a 10-year run of dominance the way Vladimir Klitschko did. And I don't see that happening. So I tend to agree with what Teddy Atlas said. I think Anthony Joshua was always overhyped. I think that they thought that he was going to be, and I also thought this, he was always going to be a Lennox Lewis, Vladimir Klitschko, like he was going to be the guy in this era that you look back at and say, this guy was the best heavyweight of his era. And the way people were talking, they were even saying that he could end up being the greatest heavyweight of all time. You know how people are, the internet is and the media is and the hype is. And I think he had a lot of things going for him that led to this. I think first is the fact that he won the Olympic gold medal, which is still a pretty big deal. I think the fact that they love boxing in the UK, and boxing has grown a lot over the years in the UK, and he's helped to grow even more. So he's done a great job. I think the fact that he looks like a physical specimen, that when you look at him, you say, wow, this guy is... he's a god. He's chiseled. He's got the body. That's the way I think people think the heavyweight champion of the world is supposed to look like. And that played a big role into it as well. I think his personality and the way he talks, he does a great job with the interviews. He has a very charismatic personality. And he definitely, I think he has a good guy character. And I think generally he is a good guy. I'm not saying it's a fake persona. I think he is. So I think all these things lead up to it. And then we get into his career. And he did fast track a lot. He won a lot of big fights early on. He beat Dillian Whyte on the way up, which was a nice win at the time. But even in that fight, if you look back, he got hurt and he had to survive it. And it really wasn't that impressive of a victory. So then, around this time, Tyson Fury had upset Vladimir Klitschko. And Tyson Fury was the anti-Anthony Joshua. People didn't like Tyson Fury because he was a gypsy. He had what a lot of people considered to be a boring style. He was very controversial. And the UK people were far more into Anthony Joshua than Tyson Fury, even though Fury was the champion and Joshua wasn't. So they were having their rematch, Klitschko and Fury. They were supposed to have their rematch. So Joshua couldn't fight any of them. Wilder had the WBC belt. He's not going to fight Wilder because they thought that fight down the line would be a bigger fight. Still hasn't happened. So they go in there and they fight Charles Martin, who was a paper champion at the time. They basically, take the belt from him. Good business by Eddie Hearn. Then he beats Dominic Breazeale, another top 10 guy. Okay, he's supposed to fight Vladimir Klitschko at this point, but Vladimir Klitschko had an injury because first Fury pulled out a bunch of times, so that fight was canceled. Then they were supposed to fight Klitschko and Joshua in December 2016. And Klitschko gets injured, so he has to fight Eric Molina. Okay, fine. Now he's got the big fight. He's got the big Vladimir Klitschko fight. Klitschko's 41 years old, and this was the big fight. Old man versus young guy, kind of the passing of the torch. Because I think people, even though Fury had beaten Klitschko, a lot of people still didn't buy into Fury. And Fury was also out of boxing at that point, so people didn't know if he was ever going to come back, or if he would come back, would he ever be the same? And it was one of the greatest fights in heavyweight history. Joshua knocks Klitschko down. Klitschko gets up, then knocks Joshua down. Joshua survives, does his thing, stops him late in the fight, shows his heart, his mettle, and it's like he's the guy now. He's the heavyweight champion now. But in retrospect, what people should have said at the time was he almost lost to a 41-year-old Vladimir Klitschko. It's either Klitschko's amazing or Joshua really wasn't all that. Because, when these type of fights usually happen when it's a young man versus an old man in the history of boxing, the young guy blows the old guy out the water. Like, it's not even close. Like, when it was Rocky Marciano and Joe Louis, Rocky Marciano, he destroyed an older Joe Louis. When it was Larry Holmes and Muhammad Ali, like, it wasn't competitive. Larry Holmes dominated him. When it was Mike Tyson and Larry Holmes, Mike Tyson dominated him. And in this fight, it really wasn't the case. So maybe you got to give more credit to Vladimir Klitschko than people did for almost winning at 41, which is impressive. But to me, that wasn't that impressive by Anthony Joshua to almost get knocked out by a 41-year-old man. Then you get into the fact that after that, he beats Takam, mandatory. He beats Joseph Parker. That was a good win, but okay. Povetkin, he got hurt by. It was a good win, but that was an older Povetkin. Then he fights Andy Ruiz. I know it was a fill-in opponent, but he gets knocked out badly, gets embarrassed in his first fight in the Garden. That was supposed to be the fight where he gets in there and he's like, I'm the guy. I'm the man. I'm the dude who is going to run American boxing. I'm here to take over America. That's what they were saying all this time. Eddie Hearn was saying that. And it was a colossal failure. He got knocked down 4 times after dropping Ruiz, but still he got knocked down 4 times. You looked horrible in that fight. You got knocked out. He then beats Ruiz in the rematch, but Ruiz in the rematch comes in at like 300 pounds. And like, you know, it was difficult to give Joshua so much credit in that situation. Then he beats Pulev. Okay, who cares? And then he loses twice to Usyk. So I just think Anthony Joshua always had some key fundamental weaknesses. He doesn't have a great jab. His stamina is very poor. You know, people say this freak athlete, but he gasses out after throwing 20 punches around. And, you know, his suspect chin, it's not great. His recovery's not great. His defense isn't great. I mean, he has good tools. He's powerful, but his power, I think, is a little overrated. I mean, it's not Deontay Wilder power. He's a good combination puncher for a big guy. He has good footwork for a big guy, in and out wise. But I just think that he's one of those heavyweights that when you look back, you're going to say he was overhyped. I think he, right now, is probably going to go from being underrated to overrated, depending on where he's at in his career. But I don't think he ever will be what they thought he would be when his career started. And I think that he was overhyped. And I think it is fair to say that he is a little bit of a hype job. Maybe hype job is too extreme because he did win 3 titles and he did have a very good career. And the way boxing is, to be honest with you, he's a borderline Hall of Fame already with some of those other guys that are in the Hall of Fame. But I think if Joshua never reclaimed the title again, and I'm not talking about like holding a belt. I mean like the title as like the best guy at the division. Again, his career would be looked at as a little bit of a disappointment. So I tend to agree with Eddie. I think UK people, they sometimes go a little too far because they want to have a guy who's one of the greats. But I think Anthony Joshua was a little bit overhyped. And not just a little bit. He was very overhyped. You know, I remember 5 years ago, my friend saying like, yo, this guy, he's going to be the greatest heavyweight ever. And I'm like, let's calm down a little bit. Even I thought that was a little bit extreme. But I did think he was the best heavyweight 5 years ago. And I did think he was going to be considered the best heavyweight of this era. I thought he would be considered better than Tyson Fury. I thought he'd be considered better than Deontay Wilder. And now Usyk's in the picture. So I think when we look back at this era, most probably Tyson Fury will be looked at as the best heavyweight of the era. And I would not have thought that 5 years ago. So, yeah, I think Anthony Joshua was a little bit overhyped. But let me know what you guys think. Was Joshua overhyped? Or maybe people are just being a little bit too unfair with him. You know, they're being a little bit too harsh on him. Peace out.